Breaking news as Masanosuke Ono officially announces his commitment to Penn State wrestling. He is going to compete for the collegiate team and not just train with the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. The dynasty is not ending anytime soon.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State Wrestling. Thank you so much for checking out this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, the #1 Penn State sports podcast. My name is Zach Seyko, and I'm your host of the show. And your comments are very much encouraged in the live chat as Ono goes on FloWrestling today and announces his commitment to Penn State and says that he plans on competing with the folkstyle team, the collegiate team, for this upcoming season for 25 and 26. So there's plenty to break down here because Penn State gets an instant title favorite, at whichever weight class he chooses. So whether that is 125, 133, 141, Ono could wrestle at any of those weight classes. Now, I know he just competed against Spencer Lee at give or take. It was 61 kilograms, but that is the equivalent of roughly 134 pounds, meaning that 133 would make the most sense. Not everybody has bought into the idea of Braden Davis being a consistent starter with the team, despite him finishing fifth. He just finished in fifth place, but I think so. I think Davis is safe, but we gotta talk about this. If he intends to compete right away, he's not going to redshirt. So, meaning he is an instant starter at any of 125, 133, 141. 141 could make sense because that's a simple bump up. He would be a title favorite at that weight class. Bo Bartlett is moving on. I know that Marcus Blaze is coming in, but Penn State, what Ono offers in addition to another impact wrestler that can score at will, that is a world champion, that is one of the rising superstars on the international wrestling scene, is you get flexibility. And Cael Sanderson is a master at this craft, being able to move the puzzle pieces around with the lineup. Because, well, you have Luke Lillidahl, you have Braden Davis, you have Marcus Blaze, Aaron Nagao is going to return from injury. It's not just as simple as you would think that this is overly complicated, but it's not. And that's where all of the eligibility is so important. Penn State can pick and choose what it wants to do with its lineup and not be shackled or anything to, well, we have to wrestle this person, or we can't do anything with this person and ruin their eligibility. They could redshirt Luke Lillidahl if they really wanted to. They could redshirt Braden Davis. They could redshirt Marcus Blaze. Ono offers flexibility. The most logical sense, I think the most logical lineup for next season would be Luke Lillidahl is at 125. I don't know how you can redshirt him. You could if he really wants to train and develop in freestyle. That is his forte. Lillidahl is a much better freestyle wrestler than he is a folk style wrestler, but it's not because he just took third as a true freshman. He was the only true freshman to place as an All-American. So you have Lillidahl at 125. You have Ono at 133 or 141. You have Braden Davis, who could stay at 133 or he could bump up to 141. And then you redshirt Marcus Blaze. You could redshirt Marcus Blaze and have him train and develop accordingly. 149 is still the same. It's Shane Van Ness. It's Tyler Kasak at 57. It's Mitchell Messenbrink at 65. It's Levi Haynes at 74. At 84, that's where it's another question mark. Do you go with Zach Ryder? Do you cut Josh Barr? Do you have him cut weight and move back down to 84? And then you start the Mirasola twins together at 97 and heavyweight. Connor and Cole, respectively, at 97 and heavyweight. So Penn State has options. Ono doesn't necessarily have to bump somebody out or take their spot. And whatever Penn State wants to do, if they happen to redshirt Lillidahl, Ono could make that cut. He hasn't made a commitment to a weight class yet because FloWrestling had asked him and said, do you intend to compete at 57 kilos or 61 or 65? And he said any of those are an option. He could be, 57 is the equivalent of 125. 61 is the equivalent of 133. 165 is the equivalent of 141. So it's ultimately what is the best case for Ono. And whichever one he decides, Penn State has the flexibility, but they could redshirt any of Lillidahl, Davis, or Blaze. All of that is on the table. Do not think because Ono is coming in that someone's going to hit the portal, somebody's going to have to leave, somebody's going to transfer out. Yes, you're going to have to make room for Ono, but it's not. Penn State can absolutely make do with this. They'll certainly make room for him, and they have this all planned out strategically and accordingly. I just want to go back to the rumors briefly and everything else, because initially it seemed like he was just going to be a part of the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, that he was going to train with be a part of the program. But I did find it suspicious that he was enrolled as a student, even though that I was hearing that similar intel that it was simply just freestyle, that he was going to train and just focus on his international competitions and freestyle tournaments. And it's okay. That is still a win. That is still a benefit, because the reason Penn State Wrestling's program, the collegiate team, is where it is because Cael Sanderson has built out the RTC program, the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, being the best program in the entire country when you have Olympic medalists training there day in and day out, whether it's Kyle Snyder, whether it's Kyle Dake, obviously Cael Sanderson and the staff as that collegiate, the face of that collegiate team and the coaching staff. But my point is, you get to go and train. Carter Starachi talks about, hey, I got to go scrap with Kyle Snyder before I get ready for a dual meet. So you're going up against an Olympic gold medalist in practice. The dual meets, the matches, the tournaments in college are going to be easy. You get that with Ono. So regardless if Ono was going to compete, just simply train for freestyle or compete in folk style, this was a massive win for Penn State. But then it gets out there that he's enrolled as a student. Okay, well, why would you enroll as a student if you're simply just going to train freestyle? Because there was something long-term that Penn State was planning. I do think now, from what I've heard, I know that there are NCAA regulations that make this not as simple as a transition. So I wonder if Penn State was able to get some sort of waiver or some sort of clearance to let Ono compete as soon as possible, which is why most people were saying this is simply just freestyle. He's going to train there, but still massive for Penn State as a whole, massive for the Penn State culture and for the program, because you are getting someone that's the best in the world training alongside. That's huge for the development of Lillidahl, of Davis, of Blaze, any of those lighter weights, because they get to go scrap with Ono, who's already a world champion. Ono and Blaze have wrestled on the international scene before. Ono did win. But if Ono's going to train and compete for the collegiate team and be a part of folk style, he's a national title favorite. He is a national title favorite at any of those weight classes. If he decides if they need him to cut to 125, he'll do it. He'll be a favorite. If they have him compete at 133, which would make the most sense, it's where he wrestled and defeated Spencer Lee. He defeated a former multi-NCAA champion. Now, granted, it was 3-2, but that's still a victory. I wonder how long Ono is going to stay with the team. I really wonder how long Ono is going to stay, because he is 21 years old. Does he intend to wrestle for the next 4 years, since he does have 4 years of eligibility? That would take him all the way up to being 25. Whatever it is, Cael Sanderson, the dynasty continues. The dynasty marches on. Bo Bassett goes to Iowa. They lose Jax Forrest to Oklahoma State. And Penn State responds with Masanosuke Ono. The best, you want to talk about the best prospects in the nation? How about the best prospects in the world? Everybody else is playing checkers. Penn State is playing chess. We're going to check in on the live chat in just a moment and talk this through, what everyone's expectations are for the lineup, because like I said, Penn State could do anything. It would make sense. Any of it would make sense. And that's what they have. They have flexibility with Ono joining the room. We'll talk about it more on the other side of this break. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Imagine watching your favorite team play live, feeling the energy of the crowd, and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person, and getting tickets to those events should not be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. They have a feature called Gametime Picks, and what that does is it curates the best deals. It makes it easier to find top value for tickets to not only sporting events, but concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. Gametime gives you easy ticket shopping shopping. You can check the Gametime app, and there's always amazing deals on some of the biggest matchups coming up, especially with the college basketball tournament going on. You'll have the super deal, you have the lowest price guaranteed, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. At the end of the day, you get peace of mind with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and the lowest price guaranteed. As I mentioned, you can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That is code LOCKEDONCollege. Again, LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Again, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions a part of your day as we're talking about this on a Monday afternoon. Season ends, but we still got plenty to discuss here now with all of the what-ifs. Lilidal followed by Ono, followed by Marcus Blaze to start off each competition is pretty decent, I'd say. Marcus Blaze makes a lot of sense as a plug and go for 141. I think that now it absolutely benefits everybody to take that red shirt, to take that, but Blaze... Tech fault his Blaze is an intriguing case because he went all the way up to 150 for his Ohio State championships. There was an injury on the team, an unfortunate circumstance, and Blaze bumped up from 133 all the way to 150, and Tech fought his way to a fourth state title. So Blaze can absolutely come in right away and wrestle at 141 and be an instant title contender. I wouldn't call him a favorite because Jesse Mendez is still there, and I think Brock Hardy can come back. I think he still has 1 year of eligibility left. So Blaze wouldn't be the title favorite, but he would be a title contender. And similarly to Luke Lilidal, as somebody that's going to get better as time goes on, but a red shirt absolutely benefits Blaze just to give him that extra year of development to get a head start. People yesterday, the Penn State dynasty is closing. Others are catching them. The same people today. Masanosuke Ono. Yeah, that's how Penn State responds. This one's been in the works for a while. Ono's actually been enrolled since January. He's been enrolled as a student since January. So I wonder if Penn State, again, there are NCAA rules with all of this, that you can't just have somebody on the team, and especially if they're an international citizen. I think that's the holdup with the NCAA regulations. Not that NCAA regulations really mean anything anymore, right? I'm not trying to say that Penn State's breaking the rules, but what I'm saying is that the NCAA, every time there's a rule or a regulation, it seems to get pushed to the side because nobody respects them. But I know that Oklahoma State ran into this issue with Sakamoto. Remember, Sakamoto wrestled against Iowa. There were actually eligibility issues with Sakamoto early on. He's that 133-pounder for them. Most likely going to be a starter for David Taylor in Oklahoma State next year. He had a spot start against Drake Ayala in Iowa in that dual meet. But that's what Penn State, I think, was dealing with, which is why most people were saying, well, even if Ono shows up, it's just going to be with the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. So something must have changed in the process where Ono can say himself that he's competing folk style for the collegiate team. What do you think the lower weights look like moving forward? Who starts? Who bumps up a class? I didn't even really mention Aaron Nagao as much as I should have. Aaron Nagao what Penn State has done is, again, like I said, I truly do mean that when Cael Sanderson is playing chess, and maybe it's not even against other programs. You have to play chess against yourself because the amount of juggling in terms of, well, who's eligible? Who can we maximize? I mean, for what it's worth, Penn State still has the option to redshirt Levi Haynes if they really wanted to. If they say they wanted to plug and play Asher Cunningham, Coach Casey Cunningham's son, let's say they wanted to do that. They could redshirt Haynes this season and then have him train or just be a part of the mat room and then go with Cunningham or something like that, or have PJ Duke bump up, right? It's being able to have your options and not ruin somebody's eligibility and still be able to juggle all of that and keep everybody happy. You would think that Penn State's just going to have a mass exodus of wrestlers out of the transfer portal. And I know that Alex Bacundo just entered the portal. He was there for a long time. He was there with the program for quite some time before he ultimately made the decision. So what I'm getting at is that Cael Sanderson has to be so strategic, but has this down to a T where it's not going to hurt the program in other ways. You are not robbing the program of of the other wrestlers that can still be there, compete, and wrestle in the lineup by having Ono. You don't have to bump somebody out and make them change their entire career. Davis doesn't have to go into the portal. Nagao doesn't have to go into the portal. Penn State can redshirt Davis, and then they can move guys around to make this all work. It would not shock me at the end of the day if we see a lineup that's maybe Lilidal, Nagao, and Ono at 33 and 41, and then Davis and Blaze ultimately take a red shirt. Why you could make that. People are arguing that it needs to be Blaze at 41. It doesn't need to be Blaze at 41. You have the flexibility. Nagao's fully healthy. He gives you an All-America caliber wrestler at 33. Ono gives you a national title favorite at 41. So there you have it. Penn State has an embarrassment of riches. I do not see anything changing for the next 2-3 years. This is Penn State. Now, when Mitchell Messenbrink and Shane Van Ness, right, all these wrestlers that are there for the next, but then you just have the nucleus of Josh Barr and Luke Lilidal, most likely the Mirasola twins. PJ Duke will be in there, Marcus Blaze. So even if you think, well, okay, Messenbrink moves on and then they lose, Ono would be in the lineup since he has 4 years of eligibility. I have no idea how he does it. I really don't. Because it would be difficult and impossible to project these lineups in advance, but Penn State can somehow do this where they move a wrestler in, they take them out, they redshirt them, and the wrestlers know this. None of this is shocking. None of this is a surprise. And it's the trust that Cael Sanderson builds with every wrestler, and which is why it was great to see comments from 2026 commit Sam Herring, is that I trust the coaching staff to do what is best for me. And Sanderson says that. He says, we don't want to force any recruitments. We don't want to force any commitments. We do what is best for the wrestler along the way, given the circumstances. A redshirt year for Davis would be very helpful for his training, his development. You could do the same for Marcus Blaze would benefit from a redshirt year, maybe even Luke Lilidal. At the end of the day, Penn State is able to get those commitments. Well, this room is crowded. Okay, but you know that going into it, and somehow still everyone's able to benefit. Like Zach said the other day, that Oklahoma State and Iowa are playing checkers while Penn State is playing chess. Oklahoma State and Iowa are certainly Nebraska's got a good team next year. Oklahoma State is certainly gaining ground. But do you notice that Penn State still pulls further away? So you have Penn State winning by 100 points, setting the scoring margin record with a 100-point difference against Cornell. The 24 tournament, if Penn State was just that dominant, maybe the competition wasn't that great. But Nebraska, Oklahoma State, and Iowa all scored more than Cornell did a season ago. Oh, well, the dynasty's starting to crumble. No, Penn State just happens to reset the scoring record again. They happen to do it again. So Oklahoma State, Iowa, Nebraska, all those programs are getting better, but so is Penn State. That's what makes this 2025 team, this tournament team, well, they didn't get everybody to finals. They only had three had three finalists, only had 2 NCAA champions, but they had 5 third-place finishers, and they had 10 out of 10 All-Americans, something that everybody said would not be done in history again, that Minnesota 2001 would be by itself. And Penn State continues to raise the bar. So Oklahoma State, Iowa, and Nebraska might take a step forward, but Penn State takes 2 or 3 steps forward in the process as well. So nobody is catching Penn State for the time being. There's really not much that I do, especially over the next 2 to 3 years. Oklahoma State and Iowa will certainly present challenges. Penn State's still coming out on top. Yeah, I imagine that's an autocorrection. Ono says he'll go anywhere from 125 to 157. He could, even if he gives up the weight. If he wrestled at 49, if he wrestled at 57, he would be a title favorite. He would be a title favorite. But I don't think that'd be a good idea. That wouldn't help him if he goes and wrestles. He just wrestled against Spencer Lee at the equivalent of 134 pounds with 61 kilos. It would not be a good idea to try to wrestle him at 57. But no matter what Penn State decides to do, no matter what they do, if the most likely lineup ends up being, let's just say, I think the most likely, because there are endless possibilities with what Penn State could do. The most likely lineup for next season at this point in time, and we're sitting here in late March when the lineup won't be set in stone till December. December 2025. So we're still 9 months away from all of this. But if I had to make my best guess right now, Lilidal at 25, Ono at 33, or Davis, or Ono at 41, or Davis. Really, I think you could go either way and you wouldn't miss a beat. So Lilidal at 25, Ono at 33, Davis at 41. You have Blaze, red shirt. Then Van Ness at 49, Kasak at 57, Messenbrink at 65, Haynes at 74, Ryder at 84. I think it's going to be Zach Ryder. Zach Ryder has shown so much wrestling in these tournaments during his redshirt season that he's ready to go at 84. I know that's a crowded weight class, but Ryder, he can hang with Max McAnally and Angelo Ferrari. I would say McAnally's the title favorite. But Ryder's not far behind. Ryder instantly is in that top 5. Josh Barr at 97 and Cole Mirasola at heavyweight, or if he's not developmentally ready, maybe you go and get a heavyweight transfer. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think Penn State would absolutely be warranted because Mirasola was wrestling at 220 pounds. So unless he's made up some of the gap there and gets to 245, 250, Kirkley was wrestling at about give or take 255. He was still giving up 30 pounds of weight where he was never going to be at 285. That's fine. But most heavyweights aren't necessarily. Gable Steveson is a one of a kind. But even he didn't wrestle all the way up to 285. Most people don't. I think Colton Schultz is the one that was closest to the maximum heavyweight. But when you look at Nick Feldman or Ben Keeter, everybody's wrestling at about 240, 250 anyway at heavyweight. So Mirasola can make that ground up. But if he needs another season to develop and if he'd be a fringe All-American, there is no shame for Penn State to go into the portal and get somebody as an instant starter at heavyweight just for one more season, kind of similar to the way that they have Bernie Truax come in at 184. So we'll keep this conversation going for one more segment, talk about just expectations for the lineup, where everything stands, thoughts on the competition, Oklahoma State, Nebraska, Iowa, where they stand. That's all coming up next here on this live Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's show is also brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Hey, daylight savings snuck up on us again. And if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. So whether you're staying up late to watch the NCAA tournament, you're squeezing in a round of golf after work, or you just want to keep up with your busy day, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. And through all of the basketball madness, that's still going on. You're going to be up late watching some of this tournament action, and 5-Hour Energy will help you keep up with the next day. And extra daylight means extra activity. So if you like being outside, you want to go for a run, you can use 5-Hour Energy as a quick boost with flavors like Tropical Burst. And you get the on-the-go convenience. So whether you're traveling, you're at an event, 5-Hour Energy is easy to grab and go and will keep you feeling refreshed. Head over to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, peach mango, or tropical burst, like I mentioned. You can even build your own 12 or 24 pack, so you can customize your favorite flavors and have it delivered right to your door. Do you need one now? Grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They are everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized with 5-Hour Energy. Again, that is 5-Hour Energy.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
And I really appreciate each and every one of you for joining this live show on a Monday afternoon to discuss Ono's commitment and official announcement that he is going to wrestle. He intends to compete with the collegiate team. Not the following season, which is what my expectation was, just given I don't know what the NCAA could do. No, he's going to compete right now in 2025, 2026. So we'll jump back into the comments section here. See, these are the matchups that you can start thinking about. Ono versus Mendez or Ono versus Hardy, right? If I think Brock Hardy still has eligibility, surprisingly enough. Ridge Lovett, I think it's Caleb Smith and Ridge Lovett. So Nebraska still has 8 out of 10 starters returning, and they just finished second. For the sake of the competition, I'm all for it. I want to see Mark Madden and Nebraska be closer to Penn State. It just makes it entertaining. Ridge Levitt just won a title. Caleb Smith, I don't think necessarily had the best tournament that maybe he would have hoped for, but Nebraska's right there with 8 starters returning. And I hopefully that one's on the schedule because they rotate the Big Ten dual meets. So Ohio State, Nebraska, Michigan is starting to quietly reload a little bit as well. Iowa's got to make some changes. How do you replace the one and dones? How do you replace Kyle Parko, Stephen Buchanan? I know what the simple answer is going to be. Oh, well, they go get AJ Ferrari. Maybe Angelo Ferrari bumps up to 97 because they still have Gabe Arnold. Or do you have Gabe Arnold cut to 174, right? So I'm eager to see how some of these other teams, and Oklahoma State's got to go through a makeover as well. I like what they have as their base. Troy Spratley, I think Tegan Jamison he should still have eligibility. I'm not thinking too far ahead. But they got to replace Cam Amin. They got to replace Dean Hamady. They got to replace Wyatt Hendrickson. And it's not that they won't, but Penn State already has the answers. Oklahoma State has to either go back to the transfer portal or they need competitions to sort themselves out. Whereas Penn State knows, okay, at 141, we either have Davis, Ono, or Blaze, one of them. And it's a title contender or a title favorite at 41. 84, I think, is a simple answer. If Josh Barr had not the best season at 97, Barr ends up struggling, maybe he gets onto the podium, and that jump from 84 to 97 is too much for him, then I can make the argument, and I can understand the case, that Barr maybe needs to go back to 84 because the weight jump was too much for him. He just finished as a runner-up. Cael Sanderson said at the post-tournament press conferences that they did not know how Barr would look going into this tournament, that there was concern around the leg, what it looked like a hamstring injury, around that leg injury. And Barr still finished as a runner-up and was close to Stephen Buchanan. He didn't major him. He didn't tech fall him. Barr was one takedown away. And Buchanan locking hands and all that. He still won the title. But Barr was close. Barr was so close. So you don't move him out of 97. That was as a first-year starter, redshirt freshman, and he goes and finishes with a silver at 97. You don't move him. You can't move him. Cole Mirasola at heavyweight it makes sense to me. I think Cole Mirasola can be an All-America contender at heavyweight because we saw Greg Kirkfleet progressively get better. Heavyweight is just so complicated because of the development, where you add weight and where you add strength. You don't just add weight for the sake of adding weight. You want Cole Mirasola to build solid, healthy muscle weight, and if that progression is slower than anticipated, Penn State should go to the portal if there's an available heavyweight that is just, I think, a one and done. If you can get a one and done, similar to Oklahoma State with Wyatt Hendrickson, but I don't know who's available at the moment. I couldn't say who's available or if somebody does jump into the portal because this conversation could change. Somebody could be in the portal. Remember, they got Greg Kirkfleet out of the portal as a 197 pounder from Ohio State at the time. If Mirasola is ready to go, he can be a starter and hold his own at heavyweight. Would I say that he's a title contender or a title favorite? Probably not. I would need to see more from Mirasola. I can't declare him as an instant title contender at heavyweight because Kirkfleet wasn't an instant title contender as he went through the developmental stages. It wasn't until that it wasn't until that, and I know Gable Steveson was there, but it took a couple of seasons for Kirkfleet to become, hey, this guy is a title contender and not just somebody that can barely make the podium. Mirasola's kind of on a similar timeline just based on his development. So Penn State's really crowded. Either way, this lineup is a national championship team once again. Of all of the lineup spots, aside from heavyweight, you can and should have 9 title contenders again with title favorites sprinkled throughout. Lillidahl at 125 is a title favorite. Wherever you put Ono at 33 or 41 is a title favorite. Van Ness, I think with what opens up at 49, would still be a title contender, right? Ridge Levitt is moving on. And I think Caleb Henson can actually come back. Caleb Henson would come back. So 49, Van Ness would probably be the second-ranked wrestler. He'd be the second-ranked wrestler at 49. Yeah, so Caleb Henson can come back. Kyle Parko moves on. There's still Panero Johnson, Jordan Williams. I wish Van Ness and Jordan Williams would have wrestled in that Penn State-Arkansas Little Rock duel, but so be it. It happens. At 57, Kasak is a title favorite. I think he's the title favorite, but 157 is loaded. 157 is loaded. And why I say Cael, but Cael just finished third. How can you consider him the favorite? Well, he did pin Antrell Taylor for what it's worth, and Taylor did win. It's a lot of its matchup. Hey, look, Joey Blaze did beat Cael fair and square. But what I'm getting at is that Cael, if he gets by Joey Blaze, I don't think there's anything stopping him in that title, including Antrell Taylor, if he would have gotten to that point. That's a lot of coulda, woulda, shoulda, what ifs. I get that. But Cael will be ranked number 1 going into next season. I think above Antrell Taylor, if I had to take a guess. Mitchell Messenbrink is a title favorite at 165. Levi Haynes is a title favorite at 174. Zach Ryder's a title contender. Josh Barr at 97 should be a title at, depending on how people look at it. AJ Ferrari will most likely transfer to Iowa. Is that what we're all thinking here? Max Stout would be in that conversation too over at Pitt. But give me Barr as a title favorite at 97. Heavyweight, maybe Mirasola does better than what I'm giving him credit for, because everybody's leaving at heavyweight. Stevenson, Kirkfleet, Hendrickson, Treffin, Schultz, Heinzelman, Slavakuski, Luffman, Nevels, everybody is leaving. Heavyweight was loaded with seniors. So maybe Mirasola isn't too far behind as I think he is, just because it's a completely open competition. The person that Isaac Trumbull of NC State in terms of eligibility and Ben Keeter would be the next guys up. Nick Feldman too. So there's your top 3 right there. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Mirasola is not too far behind and being loosely an NCAA title contender just for the sake of the competition, because there's not a lot there. Let's go back into the comments, because I did promise that. So I know there are concerns. I see the comments, well, how will Ono adjust to folk style and everything like that? Do I think he will have growing pains? Absolutely. There's going to be a learning curve. But he is a world champion. Lillidahl had that similar, right? You're going to get, but when you're a world champion, when you defeat Spencer Lee, you don't defeat Spencer Lee by accident. Again, it makes all of the practice and the training that they go through, in a sense, makes these dual meets, these tournaments at the college level fairly easy. But yeah, there's going to be a learning curve with folk style. But just play to your strengths. Lillidahl just took third. Mitchell Messenbrink and Mitchell Messenbrink has come a long way as a folk style wrestler. I know he just finished as a runner-up, but you know that he's better on his feet because of how good he is at freestyle. So Ono's going to be similar in that sense. Ono's just too strong. Yeah, Hardy has one more year at 141. So Ono versus Mendez, Ono versus Hardy. Dynasty's not going anywhere. 10 out of 10 All-Americans says it all. Indiana is gaining. Yeah, for what it's worth. Indiana had a nice tournament. Illinois, too. Illinois is making progress, but so is Penn State. The gap, see, that's the thing. Okay, so these schools are so if Penn State's out here, right? Everybody can see me. I'll try to describe this for my listening audience later, but I have my hand far away over here. So the competition does this, but then Penn State does this. And that's what's happening. So the gap, maybe it's slightly closed a little bit, but not to a point where the dynasty, because let's define a dynasty. That's winning team titles. That's winning convincingly. That's having multiple finalists. That's having 10 out of 10 All-Americans. Penn State could do 10 out of 10 All-Americans once again next season. That's on the table. Now, there's a lot of luck involved. Penn State doesn't get 10 out of 10 All-Americans if Josh Barr and Greg Kirkfleet don't give it their all. There is no guarantee that they even should have wrestled in the NCAA tournament this postseason, because they were hurt. And Greg Kirkfleet, from what we're finding out, was severely hurt, but he still gave it a go despite the circumstances. I mean, that takes a lot of toughness. That takes a lot of tenacity. Kirkfleet only finished 6th. Under the circumstances, that I have more respect for Kirkfleet than ever before. Josh Barr, with a not 100% leg, goes out and finishes as a runner-up at 97. I think those injuries might have kept other wrestlers out of the tournament, or they wouldn't have been strong enough to place on the podium. And Kirkfleet with a bad knee, Barr with a bad hamstring, go out and finish 6th and 2nd respectively. That's why Penn State was able to get 10. It takes a lot of luck. You have to hope that you're able to get all 10 to the finish line, and then they have to cross it. So let's see. Ono might wrestle for 1 year and then move on. Davis could use a redshirt year. I think that's a fair point. I don't know that Ono would maximize his 4 years of collegiate eligibility if he has it. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I would err on the side that maybe he wrestles for a year or two. He is 21 years old, and I don't know his birthday, but I got to imagine that he's 22 by the time the collegiate season rolls around. So he'll be 22, which is give or take a junior or senior most of the time in college athletics. So, this is a good question. Is there a spot for Joe Seeley? Joe Seeley, I was thinking about that yesterday because I went back through the college rankings for the 2024 class, where Lillidahl was ranked pound for pound. He was the number two. It depends on who you're looking at, but he was pound for pound number 1 or number 2. He and Joe Seeley were 2 and 3 according to FloWrestling in the class of 2024 rankings. Where would Seeley? I think there's an intention to possibly get Seeley up to 174. He could wrestle anywhere. At this point in time, he's important for depth. So he just went through his red shirt. He could be at 157 because that's where he came in at. He could wrestle at 165 if he wanted to. He gives them options as well. So if there happens to be an injury or something like that, but Messenbrink's there for 2 more years. Kasak's there for 2 more years. Haynes is there for 1 more year. So 74 would make maybe the most sense going into next season. Seeley wouldn't have committed if they didn't have a plan in place. If he didn't know what his options were. And I know Asher Cunningham's coming in. He's coming in. Coach Casey's son. William Hankel's coming in as well. It's loaded. It's loaded at the upper weights. So Zach Ryder would be a 4-year starter right now at 184. Josh Barr's a 3-year starter at 197. I have no idea how they do it. Your guess is as good as mine at this point. Let's think about the options though. But 74 does open up after Levi Haynes, where it could be Joe Seeley, it could be Asher Cunningham, it could be William Henkel, maybe PJ Duke bumps all the way up in due time. He'll most likely redshirt. He's coming in at I think he projects at 157 or 165. And these guys can bump up or bump down with whatever they need to do. But yeah, Seeley has a wider range of options with 57, 65, and 74. Haynes makes the most sense with him leaving after next season, where Seeley would probably take another year as a backup, and then with 3 years of eligibility would crack the lineup. I think that's where we're going to have to finish it. We went a little bit over time, but that's okay. Very much enjoy talking with all of you in the live chat here on this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Ono's officially committed. He announced he intends to compete for the collegiate team. That's the big news here. And how it unfolds, we can talk about endless possibilities up until when the lineup's actually set in stone around November and December. So we're going to have more conversations. We're going to have more analysis. I already had an episode planned. What does Penn State's lineup outlook look like going forward before the Ono announcement? But now this does change some things at 125, 133, and or 141. So be on the lookout for new shows around Penn State wrestling. The coverage is not going anywhere. We have plenty to discuss this offseason. So if you're new to the channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. I appreciate all the support on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode. Be on the lookout for more conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams, whether it's wrestling, football, men's basketball, on the #1 Penn State sports podcast out there, Locked On Nittany Lions.